Now, obviously, the Rolling Stones aren't going to go broke, but you don't use them as a litmus test for what this is doing to the culture. You know what I mean? Because it's having an effect across the board, and you know, it's just and it's also the internet's turned everyone into a pundit too. So everyone's got something to say about anything that you do or
Yeah.
or whatever. Like, and they don't have to be responsible for it. They don't have to be accountable for it. They don't have to put their name on what they're saying. So
It's just a vague picture and then a little user ID.
all of
Yeah,
those
well,
all
this-
of those things are
this-
not necessarily great.
One of the saddest things to me is just music's such an important part of everybody's life, whether they're an avid collector of it or they're just a casual listener. It's in your car, it's in the elevator, it's at the airport, it's everywhere, and it's a huge part of how things work, and it brings people together, and it brings a lot of enjoyment as people escape. And by valuing music as zero, it's worth nothing. It's worth fucking nothing now. So,
Everybody needs it, but nobody wants to pay for
So
it.
now that it's worth nothing and you valued something at nothing, it's the same as if Rolls-Royce made cars and they hand make it and these 10 guys work on it for 6 months to build this car by hand, and they're free. So now the side of the freeway would be littered with Rolls-Royces, because when it ran out of gas, your free car, you just leave it and go, I don't like this one, it's blue, I want a blue one. Yeah, there's no value in it, and there's a lot of value in music. There's a huge value in it, and by doing that, what you end up getting is any music that can generate money will be the dumbest, shittiest, lip-syncing crap that's made for the lowest common denominator, made for the masses, just kind of like reality TV and everything. Cheaper, shittier, dumber, dumb it down. And people that the next Led Zeppelins and everybody, they're playing right now, and they'll never get a chance, because if you don't support these things, there's no infrastructure to let a band turn into a band and mature and grow, and it's financially impossible. I mean, we're out here doing this. We get paid for what we do, but we'll spend almost every penny we make to do this.
That's
Yeah.
what people don't understand.
We're not
They
out here
think
printing money.
They think
we spend almost all our money to
What
do
you're
this.
getting into the
and,
show,
and we're
yeah.
and we're fortunate, to move. 6 semis and 20 buses
and how
yeah,
many crew people,
right?
and
30
how many
crew guys.
drivers.
Each bus costs $30,000 a week. People don't know that. Each bus is a month. Each bus is $30,000 a month rolling around out there. That's not counting gas and stuff. And it costs millions of dollars to do this stuff at a certain level. And it's what you love to do, and we're fortunate that we can kind of make it work. But it's, you run into the same problem too, where that's your sole income is if you can afford to tour or even make a tour work. That's your only income, because you won't get paid for the work that you did when you.
Nobody's making money on records anymore.
Yeah,
People think they're sticking it to the man. That was the old battle cry, 10 years ago or 12 years ago, or whenever this whole thing really started. They're sticking it to the man. They're not. The thing is,
The man
they're
stuck it to all of us.
the-
The record companies fucked every human that ever recorded music in the history of music. Every single person to the first recordings has been permanently fucked, because the record companies didn't get their shit together, and nobody regulated anything and found a way to distribute this right. It is what it is. You just live with what life's about. But it doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't cost any less for us to make a record. It doesn't take any less for us. And for what we do, this is the one. Tonight we'll play 70 minutes. That's the fun. That's the easy part. But when we do this, it's not like you punch in a clock and go to work for 8 hours. It's a 24-hour job, 365 days a year, and we'll try to take a month or so off around Christmas and stuff, but we run all of our own business, so you can say, don't call me, but that rarely happens. Something is always happening, and you have to respond to something or email, so
and it'll get harder and harder to run that business the more this sort of ripple effect takes hold in the culture. I mean, the more that again, people think they're sticking it to the man by not paying for a record, BitTorrenting and all this. No, they're not. They're sticking it to their favorite band. They're sticking it to their favorite artist, and ultimately they're sticking it to themselves. Because eventually those people aren't going to be able to tour so readily. A lot of bands are going to break up. A lot of bands already have broken up. Like, when you talk about your top tier, groups that are able to operate, like he's saying, we're somewhere in the fortunate category, in that at least we can have a serious conversation about moving all these semis and all these people around the world and flying the gear everywhere. And feeding everyone that works for this group and everything, and feeding ourselves, we can at least have that conversation. But there are a lot of bands that were able to survive 15, 20 years ago at the mid-level, where you're just, your bands like your punk bands that were on Epitaph, those bands that sold around 100,000 records, and they could rely on that. They could make their records cheaply. They could tour in a bus. They could make a living. Now those bands can't do that anymore. That whole mid-level, it's just like what's happening in the larger sense in the country and in the world. Like this middle-class thing is just getting routed. They're the ones getting routed, And
do you think now your live show is more important because obviously with the issues with music and the record industry and everything, the fans are the ones buying the tickets. Do you think your live show is more important now?
Sure, the live show is always important.
It's
You're always
important.
going to leave it. You're always going to leave it all in the field.
And you want to be good.
Yeah.
But here's the shortcut. You have tons of bands shortcut it. They use tapes while they're playing. Most bands, even rock bands, it's shocking to us because we're old school. We just play like whatever we do tonight. It's 4 guys. That's it. But the majority of bands, and a lot of them, more than not, have help. Some of them have almost the whole thing is pretty much a puppet show, and to me that's weird too because it's you play music together. It lives and breathes. And it can change and stuff. And being tied into this just smoke and mirrors thing that doesn't appeal to us at all. But that's kind of what's happening all the time too, and you see it in rock bands, which I never thought. In some metal bands, once in a while, it's like, to me, that rock was a total anti. Right. Fuck that, you don't do. Right. That's what the whole thing of rock was about. Now it's like it's totally okay. I've overheard conversations of some newer bands bragging about the tracks. Like, oh, we got some great new tracks and guitars. It's like, wow.
And that stuff is gonna, as he was saying about the lowest common denominator, sort of most robotic, most trivial, most plastic sort of pop music is going to just continue to be the only thing that's going to get pushed because it's the only thing that is going to make them any money. Like these labels,
you see that on the Billboard charts.
You're going to see that. You're going to see that more and more affecting the so-called like rock music too, and the counterculture music, because for real bands, you have to get together in a room and play, and you have to record your stuff organically. So that means you need a room that's going to accommodate that.
You have to have money to do that, which you can't get because nobody buys anything. You can't just, nothing's free. Guitar strings aren't free. Drumsticks aren't free. Room to jam in. Not everybody has a basement, lives with mom. It changes, And that's the sad thing. I'm worried about the future of music and, rock in general is getting its ass handed to it right now.
I get that vibe from you, and I've seen that a lot.
But it always comes back. Rock, I'm sure they're saying it right now. Rock is dead. They've said that my whole fucking life, right?
Sure. They've said that since rock's whole fucking life. They've said that since 1955.
Right, right. So, I'm waiting for it to come around, and it will. But, people need to support these things if they like that genre of music or whatever genre of music. They need to support those things, or else it will be longer. And I've seen movements be longer and longer. They're taking longer. They used to be about every 8 years, some big thing would shake it up. 9 Inch Nails would, they use technology as instruments and then really perform. Now, that's great. They don't just like
Radiohead too.
And you'd see this kind of wave of music come in, and then, we were kind of in a movement that shifted things from my town, and kind of waiting for it ever since. Like, where's the next? It doesn't seem like anything really sticks, but as you devalue things and nobody cares, they don't put any personal interest, energy, or anything into it. They just and it's on to the next. It makes it harder and harder for that movement to happen, and that's when the youth bond together over stuff and make some changes. Because if last I looked, and every time I look around, the world's going to shit. There's a lot of shitty things happening. There's a lot of great things, but people are settling for what they shouldn't and being fed the fucking bullshit that they shouldn't eat, and they're being told to thank people for it. Well, younger people, like they always have historically, should stand up and take it back, because this is your future. You want to live in a shitty world and make it worse? Because it can change. It just takes people to change it.
You want to continue to participate in the devaluing and eventual evisceration of your culture? I mean, because that's what's going on too.
Well, what do you think
know?
bands can do? Because you look on the Billboard charts and you see the One Directions, the Taylor Swift, people like that who are
Those
topping
always
the
exist.
That's always been there,
Also,
man.
it's
There's always gonna be some pretty boy with the right haircut, and he's gonna get pushed. And there's always gonna be some little pop tartlet that's gonna get pushed. That's fine. We're as far as like bands that play real music, they're always gonna be there too. I think the question is more like, how are they going to arm themselves to fight the battle to exist and actually have a shot at eking out a living? I mean, at least 20 years ago, even when the labels were, ripping everybody off, and there was this whole like, sort of like, master serf kind of relationship with between most bands and most labels, you still had at least the dream. You still had like a band like Guns N' Roses could be sleeping on somebody's floor and then 2 years later be playing stadiums. You know what I mean? And that's because they hit the lotto and won it big. Or the bands that came from Seattle a few years later. That kind of stuff can't happen anymore. It can't happen anymore, and that's sad because at least look, MTV doesn't play music anymore. You know what I mean? At least being a kid at home watching, you could see like, damn, look at that dude Slash or whatever, like on a mountaintop, like soloing. That's rocking. I want to do that. Or, like that dream's dying.
Everything
Yeah.
gets monopolized, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing that in everything. So the radio's owned by essentially two companies, and touring's owned by two companies, and record companies. There's two left. There's pretty much two major ones. There's Warner's and there's Universal. We were on EMI, which has got absorbed into Universal. Since our last record. So it just keeps shrinking and getting morphed under one umbrella.
And you see this trend right now with hipsters. Records are coming back. They're loving them.
Right, vinyl.
Do you like that trend? Do you like the
I think it's-
hipsters? What
I
they're
think-
doing?
well, it's fine.
I never
It's-
stopped loving it.
Yeah, it's fine. I think again, the universe is always going to seek to balance itself. So the more you've got this enormous, horrific push in the direction that we've been talking about towards homogenation, consolidation, robot music,
Yeah.
like all of that, you're going to have a reaction too in the underground, and vinyl being one of those things. I read Trent Reznor's going to release his new record on a major label, Columbia, which he's getting a lot of flack for amongst all these internet pundits, you know what I mean? And then I just read yesterday actually, that he's going to release two versions of his album to fight the loudness wars. We had a guy holding up a sign a few shows back where he's like, the loudness wars are ruining music, and I love your album, but it sucks because of the loudness and the way it's mastered. Anyway, Trent is trying to fight that battle by releasing two versions of his album. He's going to release the normal, sort of more smashed digital version for most people, and then he's going to release the audiophile version on vinyl, and also I think he's going to give you a digital version of the audiophile too. It's not going to be nearly as loud, and you should see the chatter around it, man. There's so many people that are just up that guy's ass for just trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the attitude we got to deal with. We got to combat that. Like whoever, I don't care if it's young people, I don't care who, but bands talking about it, we got to combat that attitude, because the dude's out there trying, we're out here trying. You know what I mean? There's lots of bands that aren't going to get a chance to even try.
Everybody's got it hard. You got to work. We got a pretty charmed life. We've built a life for ourselves, and there's been a lot of up and downs, because life's like that. Life's messy. It doesn't work the way you want it to. Rarely pans out the way you hope it does. But you got to keep moving forward, and you got to try to be true to yourself and not give up and not be pushed around by the forces as you go through life, and try to stand for something, And a lot of these newer bands aren't going to have a chance to do that. They're not going to have a chance to stand on their own.
Do you have a skill or something to give to the new bands out there trying to make it?
Well, no, they do keep playing. You have to play
just
live.
keep playing.
Play live shows, write songs, do what you need to do, and don't try to be somebody else. A band needs to have its own identity. That's what it signifies you from somebody else. Everybody has influences, but You know, when you fall upon your own sound, you don't have to be the most shreddy shredmeister to have that. You just, if the chemistry works and you have your own sound, that's the key to playing, you know. But what we do, what I was saying, is sort of a charmed life on some levels, but, you know, the majority of people have a couple kids, don't have health care and can barely fucking have to work 3 jobs and can barely get by. Well, that's a lot harder than what we do, is playing here to a bunch of people and having people tell us we're fucking neat, and then getting a $1 million bus and travel to the next show in our underwear, you know, where they drive us to the door of our job, you know. But, you know, it's hard everywhere, you know. So I don't.
Yeah, it's
doing
just
these things suck. Talking like this because
it
always gets that blowback. Fuck you, millionaire rock star dick. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I'm not whining about it. I'm just
What it is
educate people. Like, let's do something about this.
well, we're having a larger conversation than just about ourselves. This is
Yeah.
about a culture. It's about the bottom dropping out of an entire culture. That's what the conversation really is. It's not about one particular artist, particular story, and if the bottom drops out, it's going to make it worse for everybody. It's going to make it worse for us. It's going to make it worse for all the people working 3 jobs. It's going to make it worse for the people coming to see this gig today. You know what I mean? That's the conversation, you know.
It seems like people don't have a problem paying $600 to see Justin Bieber. They can scrounge up $600 to bring their kid to Bieber because they have Bieber fever, right? Those fucking things sell out because you'll do anything for your kid. You know, it's like, well, those ticket prices are a little ridiculous, don't you think? I don't think anybody's worth $600 to go see unless they're going to go up there and cure cancer or some fucking if they're gonna cure your ailments in mass or something. I don't get what the fuck that's.
front, lay hands
I was
on.
gonna say, even the Pope doesn't charge $600.
He's about to lose his mind.
Yeah.
We should probably
Yeah.
we should probably stop.